So with stuff like No One Lives Forever and Shogo and its past, Monolith has a really great history of making really atmospheric first-person shooters. Though over the past few years with its Condemned series and the Fear games, it's gotten a lot more on a kind of specifically a horror bent. This trend continues with Fear 2 Project Origin, which has the same sort of mix of high-tech firefights and crazy scare-your-pants hallucination stuff as its forebear did. It's maybe not as tactical a game as the first Fear was, but it's a great looking game, it's got a whole lot of atmosphere, and it's also just a really fun ride.
Nice of you to join us, Sunshine.
Now Fear 2 picks up just before the end of the first Fear, and this time you're playing as a different character, so you actually get to see the events of the end of the first Fear from a different perspective, which is kind of a neat touch. For the most part, the game is all about you hunting down Alma, the crazy teenage, psychokinetic young girl who just goes nuts and goes after everyone involved in the Armacham Corporation, this business that went about torturing her for most of her life. Now on your quest, you end up fighting the private army of the Armacham Corporation, which are these dudes in these really badass kind of, private army suits. These replica soldiers who are psychically controlled clone soldiers that have gone rogue. And of course, there's Alma herself. Now, for the most part, Alma just shows up and makes things go crazy. But for the most part, it's just a show. It's one of those things where you'll be running down a hallway and suddenly everything will get really weird and you won't know what's going on. But then it'll snap back and you're just back into the game. It's kind of window dressing, but it's really good window dressing. It really helps establish the kind of uneasy atmosphere that Fear is all about.
It's been there for 12 years, floating in darkness.
The first Fear was all about kind of the fear of the unknown. All this crazy stuff was happening and you had no idea why. Much like with Condemned 2 Bloodshot from 2008, which explained much of the stuff that was going on in the first Condemned, Fear 2 does the same thing. You get to know a lot of the things that were happening to Alma with the Armacham Corporation, things that were kind of, behind the curtain before. That might seem weird, but getting to see all that stuff and knowing like how deep this grand conspiracy goes is kind of terrifying in its own way. Now the first Fear was a pretty tactical game. You had enemy AI that was smart about flushing you out from cover, taking cover when it needed to, making its own cover by flipping over tables and stuff, flushing you out from cover with grenades. They still do that in Fear 2, but it seems like there's just so much more ammo at your disposal, more armor, more health packs, more really kick-ass weapons in general, that it's not that big of an issue for you to just run up on a dude and smoke him. So it's not as challenging a game, but it's still really satisfying just because of the hard-hitting feel of all the weapons. And there are also just a lot of great set pieces in Fear 2 as well. One of the best examples is there's a couple sequences where you get to pilot these huge mech suits, which you've kind of been running away from for most of the game up to this point. So when you finally get in one, it's super satisfying. It looks great, the way that there's these kind of imperfections in the video display that you're seeing from inside the mech suit. Just the smoke trails on the missiles that you're shooting off, the sound of the hydraulics inside the suit. It's a really fun ride. Fear 2 also an incredibly linear game. There's very few points where you're not sure where you need to go. There's no sort of map system whatsoever. It's just move forward and shoot dudes, which again, it makes it a less tactical game, but it keeps the momentum going forward, which is one of Fear 2's biggest strengths. Now this also means that you're going to blow through the single player game in Fear 2 pretty quickly. Now there's also a multiplayer element to Fear 2, but it feels kind of by the numbers. It's pretty standard stuff. You've got deathmatch, team deathmatch, capture the flag. You've got control point mode, a mode where you have to defuse a bomb. The only thing that's particularly special about the multiplayer in Fear 2 is one mode where you get to bring out one of those big, awesome mech suits. But it's one of those things that's kind of better in theory than it is in practice, just because the only thing that seems really effective against these big mechs is another mech. So if you're just on the ground, you just find yourself kind of dying over and over again. I know I've said the word a few times already, but Fear 2 is really just kind of a ride. You get on, you move forward really fast, a lot of crazy stuff happens, and when you're done, you don't really have much to take away from it, but it was still a whole lot of fun.
Beckett, I need to check your visor calibration. Good, you're set.